Hi there, and welcome back to An Object Today. So, that's kind of a lie because I'm going on a trip, so tonight I'm recording a few of them. And I think for now I'm going to do kind of overviews of objects. If anybody wants to see me go a little deeper into any of this stuff, leave it in the comments. I'm happy to talk about the stuff or answer whatever questions you guys have. So, today we're looking at one of the most kind of underregarded great cartoonists. But before that, I just want to say I have a movie podcast. It's called Nominee Questionable Movies with Dan and Ron. Ron is my inimitable co host. And I have a pretty groovy store. If you didn't know that upstate New York was up and coming, well, come on down to Ballston Spa, New York. See Silver Factory Books and Records. Coming soon, Day Old Games, a kind of, let's call it a concept in retail right now. And so, yeah, so what are we talking about today? So, today I brought out, these are all the ones I have. I have no idea if this is all of the kind of Jules Feiffer paperbacks that were printed in this style, but this is how I first found this material in like a bookstore, not a comic book stores almost never carry this stuff. Shout out to Phil did hook me up with a different version of 666. So what are these? um, Essentially these are collections of a comic strip that the cartoonist Jules Feiffer did for the Village Voice when the Village Voice first started. He was doing it for years and years and years. These are the earliest collections of the strip. They're not really formatted like standard comics or standard cartoon collection books because of how they're printed. The first one of these that I saw was this 666, which 666 was the name of the strip, so I presume this was the first one to come out. Let me make sure the camera's right. That looks about right. So, yeah, what's going on here? Looks like somebody put a little pencil on the front of this guy, but yeah, very striking lettering. He makes a good use of not a lot of color. The colors he chooses to use are, they take on a lot of weight just because, this isn't, and like the way he draws, like if you put too much detail in the color, it would not look good. And so these are nice, comfortable paperbacks. Read easy in the hands. Let's see if they lay flat, because I've always kind of read these in an easy chair. I love this back cover. The kind of, he's not using, he only uses like a straight up white in like his name and the 2-6. I think all the people are kind of this dull brown verging on pink. It's pink. I'm being silly. So why am I opening this like it's manga? This is from New York City. So yeah, it opens nice and flat. Little introduction telling us who the heck is Jules Feiffer. Copyright dates, all your, your normal, like, it's a book, people. This is going to be there. So one thing I like about how these books are laid out is all these strips were originally, I want to say, 8 panels. They would get like the top third of a page in the tabloid size Village Voice. And I almost wonder if this influenced Chester Brown, and we'll look at Chester Brown later. But in the Village Voice, there were 8 panels on this page, presumably. But for dramatic effect, the colors are inverted here, and each one of the panels is isolated on a different page. And that really struck me when I probably found this when I was like 12 or 13. Because it gives this sense of animation. The negative space, like, yes, it is kind of a cheap way to make a book, but used sparingly for effect, it can look really nice. Feiffer, he doesn't really have to use. Feiffer's kind of got his own anatomy, but it's still believable that this ball is being snapped in the air. And most of these comics, they're just little monologues from these various people of all ages, and there's not really anything else quite like it in comics. This, I think, was doctored, but I can't imagine the version in the Village Voice was more effective than that. So you have some kind of silly jokes. So this is, dude kind of dressed like he's in ancient Greece with sunglasses is sitting in like an ancient psychiatrist chair. This is the 1960s in New York City, so you're going to see a lot of references to analysts, psychiatrists. That was very, it was in vogue to talk about that in New York City in the 60s. So he says, after all, I was raised away from home. How was I to know this guy was my father? I mean, all right, so I killed him, but I didn't know he was my father. And then I meet this dame. How could I know who she was? Is it my fault I like him mature? All right, so I marry her. But did I know she was my mother? It's not like I was sick or something. Okay, I'll come back next week. I'll bring my daughter. You can talk to her. Boy, she got problems. He walks out with a cane. And I just remember thinking this was so, it's very clever. He's not afraid to get silly. I like this effect with the tables in the background. Sometimes he'll have a dialogue. He's not really afraid of negative space. Like he'll have panels where it's just kind of two people reacting and not talking. And I think the key word here is like space. Like everything is given some weight by being given room to breathe here. And you got these neurotic, I don't want to say crazy people. I mean, now we're dealing with real crazy people. Like 1960s New York neurosis seems like kind of a little quaint, but what are you gonna do? So it's all kind of like this. They're split over 2 pages. And I almost wonder when Dan Close split Ice Haven into, like, from the original kind of tabloidy size or magazine size format to half the size, so it looked like a newspaper comic strip book. Like, this is a comic that does that, because I don't think these were ever run in the Village Voice looking like split between pages. So there's a few of them. I really like how expressive he makes these faces, and he doesn't. He establishes a lot through body language. Most of his backgrounds, like his standard background in a superhero comic would be like almost cheating, but it works because he just doesn't need a lot of space to get across what he's going for, and he's kind of kept to, I gotta say, like, until he turned, like, well, I guess there's Tantrum, but uh, so much of his work is in these short bursts. There's some stuff he did for Playboy that I don't think I have anymore, but it's like this with watercolors. It's so good. It's called Bernard and what the fuck is it called? I can't remember. The one time I met Jules Feiffer, I asked him if that was ever going to be collected, but I was all nervous, and I came across as like kind of a goober. And anyway, I don't think Jules Feiffer spends a lot of time thinking about me being a goober. So the best one of these paperbacks, for my money, having read them all a few times over the years, is this one. Nobody talks about this. I've never seen like any talks of reissuing this. I might be the only stan in the room, but whatever. I'd put this in my like top 40 graphic novels of all time, and it's a very early one too. More kind of formal experimentation. You have like dialogue in the form of kind of a play script for 3 pages, and then we emerge in the comic, but there's still no pictures. It's still just text, but like you can tell clear as day this page is a comic and this page is not a comic. And then you have, this is almost kind of like Comics 101, right? Like we start out with, the second you add that little tail to the words, it's kind of recognizably comics. And then the next step further you can take that is you break it into equal size boxes to give a sense of like steady time. And he doesn't, all of his dialogue is pretty simple, which keeps it kind of snappy. And just a lot of stuff about just very personal, kind of small moment-y stuff that doesn't really exist in 1960s comics outside of stuff like this. Well, before the Undergrounds, like this is like Robert Crumb still would have been drawing greeting cards when this was coming out. When was this printed? Oh, okay, I definitely don't have all of them. Okay. I'll look at that later. Okay, yeah, this was printed in 1959, so I think Robert Crumb was still living with his mother, and very ahead of the curve, kind of pointing the way towards. He's sort of like, he's like the Lenny Bruce of comics, kind of. He's one of those guys pointing the way towards kind of more personal and confessional comics in a way that maybe like, well, I mean, Kurtzman wasn't really, I guess maybe in the war comics, but Kurtzman wasn't really pushing in that direction. There's another guy who's very similar to Jules Feiffer, who I have a soft spot for, named Lou Myers, and we'll probably look at the two Lou Myers comic books in a later episode. Anyway, I think I'm running long. This has been An Object a Day, the show where we look at an object a day. I'm your host, Dan, and I'll see you at Silver Factory Books and Records in sunny Boston Spa, New York. Hope you're all doing well.